Rust Creek Massacre. Chapter 3. The Echoes Inside the Slaughterhouse. The wind carried a low humming vibration through the trees as Evan stood on the cracked pavement of Rust Creek's deserted main road. The mask he found earlier still weighed heavily on his mind. Its unsettling shape burned into his memory. He had tucked it into his backpack, though he wasn't sure why. Curiosity, a bad impulse, something deeper. He didn't know, but a strange instinct told him not to leave it behind. The fog had thickened since he left the forest path. It rolled across the road like pale, ghostly waves, obscuring the abandoned houses on either side. Their broken windows stared back at him like hollow eye sockets. The silence felt unnatural, too complete, too carefully arranged. Evan lifted his flashlight and swept it across the nearest building, an old diner with a rusted sign that flickered faintly. Miller's Breakfast was barely readable beneath layers of grime. The interior was dark, but something inside reflected light. A glass, a pan, a knife. Objects left in place as if the town had evaporated in an instant. He checked his phone again. Still no service. He took a slow breath. Keep moving. Find shelter. Find answers. The icy air bit at his skin as he followed the road toward the structure he had spotted earlier. The enormous building looming at the far end of Rust Creek. The one that looked like a factory. Or something worse, the slaughterhouse. It rose out of the fog like a monolith, massive, decaying, hunched over the earth like an enormous animal frozen mid-crawl. Tall, narrow windows lined the upper walls, each one shattered or boarded shut. Chains hung from metal beams over the entrance, swaying ever so slightly in the breeze, clinking like distant bells. The sound tightened Evan's chest. "This is a terrible idea," he whispered to himself, but his feet kept moving. When he reached the main door, he noticed deep gouges carved into the wood, not random scratches, deliberate marks, symbols repeating in patterns, a circle, a vertical line through it, 4 diagonal slashes. He traced the shape with his finger. It felt familiar, the same symbol burned into the tree trunk in the forest. Someone marked this place, someone wanted others to know. He forced the door open. A stale, metallic smell hit him immediately, like rust, cold water, and something faintly organic beneath it. His flashlight beam cut through a cloud of dust as he stepped inside. The air was colder here, much colder. The entrance corridor stretched into darkness, with rusted rails hanging from the ceiling. Long curved metal hooks dangled from them, their edges dulled by time. They swayed slightly, though there was no wind. Evan swallowed. "Don't think about it. Just breathe." His footsteps echoed against the concrete floor, bouncing through the massive interior. Water dripped somewhere deeper in the building, a monotonous, steady rhythm. Drip, drip, drip. He paused. That rhythm wasn't natural. It was too steady, too measured, almost like footsteps. He tightened his grip on the flashlight and turned left into a side corridor. The walls were lined with peeling tiles, stained with age. A series of metal doors stretched along the hallway, all slightly open. Something about them felt wrong. He approached the first door and nudged it open. Inside the small room, metal tables were overturned, cabinets ripped from the walls, papers scattered across the floor. But amid the chaos, one thing stood out: a photograph pinned to the wall. He stepped closer and raised the flashlight. A group of workers stood outside the slaughterhouse, smiling. Their uniforms were stained with grease and sawdust. Behind them, a tall, broad-shouldered man stood slightly apart from the group, not smiling. His face was obscured by the shadow of his hat. Evan's heart skipped. In the photograph, the same symbol he saw earlier, the circle with the vertical line, was spray-painted onto the wall behind them. He stepped back. His breathing quickened. He moved to the next room. More debris, more overturned furniture. But a pattern was forming. In every room, the same symbol appeared, carved into walls, etched on metal surfaces, slashed into wooden doors. Each symbol was fresher than the last, as if they were added over time. He followed the symbols down the hallway, deeper into the slaughterhouse, until he reached a massive chamber at the center of the building. And there, hanging from the ceiling, illuminated by a solitary beam of moonlight, a row of mannequins, dozens of them, suspended from hooks by their backs. Their arms drooped unnaturally, their heads hung forward. Their torsos were carved with deep cuts, slashes, circles, lines, like grotesque tattoos. Evan froze. These weren't mannequins, they were training dummies. For knife practice, for butchering. But some of the cuts, some looked too precise, too fresh. He stepped closer. The smell hit him then, faint, metallic, unmistakable. Blood. He jolted back, dropping the flashlight. It clattered on the concrete, spinning wildly, throwing erratic beams across the chamber. That's when he heard it. A long, slow inhale. From somewhere behind him. Evan whipped around, pulse hammering in his ears. His flashlight beam landed on a dark opening. Another hallway, pitch black. Silence. Then something moved. A faint scrape, a shift of weight. The sound of leather stretching. Evan staggered backward, his breathing became shallow. "Who's there?" he called out, though he didn't want an answer. The scrape came again, louder, closer, deliberate. He grabbed his flashlight and backed toward the center of the chamber. His beam shook as he aimed it at the hallway entrance. A shadow shifted, tall, broad, still. He aimed the beam higher, a shape, a head, something covering it, a mask, leather, stitched, the same type of mask he'd found in the woods. His hands shook violently now. The figure stepped forward, not into the light, but just close enough that Evan could hear its breathing. Deep, slow, controlled. Evan stumbled back, nearly tripping over one of the dummies. He turned and ran. He didn't think, didn't breathe, didn't feel the cold air tearing at his lungs. He just ran. Corridor after corridor blurred past him, the slaughterhouse transforming into a disorienting maze. Chains rattled overhead, doors slammed shut on their own. The metallic drip grew louder, angrier, faster. He crashed into a wall and hissed in pain. His shoulder throbbed. He pushed off and kept moving. He could hear the footsteps now, heavy, measured, unrushed. The thing wasn't chasing him, it was herding him, guiding him, towards something. He reached a staircase and took it 2 steps at a time, climbing into the upper level. The floor creaked beneath his weight. Moonlight filtered through shattered windows, casting long skeletal shadows across the room. He darted to the far end and pushed through a half-broken door. Inside was an office, dusty, cramped, filled with old ledgers and scattered tools. A single desk sat beneath the window. He slammed the door shut behind him and pressed his back against it, chest heaving. Silence returned. For a moment he thought he'd lost it. That whatever thing lived in Rust Creek had let him escape. Then he heard a whisper, not outside the door, inside the room. He spun around. The whisper came from the desk. from an old tape recorder partially buried under papers. Its red light blinked. Once, twice, then it started playing. A man's voice crackled through the static, low, trembling, terrified. "If anyone finds this, leave. Don't stay in this town. He watches the forest. He hunts the roads. But the slaughterhouse, that's where he feeds." Evan's heart slammed against his ribs. The footsteps returned. Right outside the office door, slow, deliberate, closer. The door handle twitched. Evan held his breath. The handle twisted again, harder this time, metal scraping metal. Then, slam. The entire door shuddered under a powerful hit. Evan scrambled backward, knocking over a chair. Another slam, louder, cracking the wood. He looked frantically around the room. No exit, no back door, only the window. The third hit splintered the frame. Evan grabbed a metal chair and hurled it at the window. Glass exploded outward, shards scattering into the night air. He climbed onto the desk. The door groaned. Something massive pressed against it. He didn't look back. He dove through the window, landing hard on the roof below. Pain shot up his leg, but he forced himself up and limped across the roofline. Behind him, the office door finally gave way. A deep, guttural growl filled the room he had just escaped. Evan leapt onto a lower ledge, slid down the side of the building, and landed in the tall grass as the fog swallowed him whole. He didn't stop moving, didn't dare look back. But as he limped away from the slaughterhouse, he heard one final sound echo through the night. A slow, heavy breath, followed by the creaking sound of chains swaying in the wind.